Oh, you took yours out?
Well, it's been out.
Oh, okay.
I also have Fleur Delacour and Sirius Black's wand. The Sirius Black wand I leave in the case because it's cracked. And it's really long. It's actually kind of my favorite. It's got the runes in it and stuff. And then I have Queenie Goldstein's.
I have only Ginny Weasley because in the books she's my favorite.
Oh, and Narcissa Malfoy. Goat. Helen McCrory.
Yeah. Oh, R.I.P.
Hello, everybody. I'm Will.
And I'm Kristin.
And this is So I'm Watching This Show, your new favorite pop culture YouTube channel where we talk about movies, TV, music, and more. And as always, this is a spoiler show, so you have been warned. I've been needing this.
You don't.
The power has been unleashed.
Uh-oh.
On today's episode, we are going to begin what is going to be a lengthy journey through the wizarding world with the first Harry Potter movie, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or Philosopher's Stone, if you're feeling accurate.
Yeah, that's these ones say because we bought them in England.
In which we'll start there. Why is that different?
Because oh god, it is like it is a Britishism thing, and they didn't think that kids in America or other countries would understand that philosopher also means like sorcerer.
Yeah, it sounds like
wizard. Well, it sounds like just a man who goes to the woods and thinks. Yeah.
Because they call it the Philosopher's Stone in the movie itself in England, but I think they all just say sorcerer in the movie. So it's just a Britishism. Yeah. Well, that is actually an interesting starting point is when the movies, like when they were going to be making the movies, initially JK was not for it because she was like, they're just going to put it in Hollywood and like move it to America and change all the Britishisms and stuff. Yeah. And so that was a huge thing that like They did
not. Everything is English. It was all filmed in England. I've been to the studio tour. Do we need to address the elephant before we get started?
I think we're going to address the elephant in the room.
Okay.
And I really feel like we only are going to do it the once. And I'm mostly going to talk about her the way I normally would.
I think we can talk about her the way we talk about Joss Whedon.
I think, okay. Do you want to? I have a lengthy thing to say. Do you have?
Okay. The only things I really want to say are it hurts my heart that something that is so beloved has unfortunately come from somebody who seems to be so hateful. I love the Harry Potter franchise. What?
Does she seem to like there's
something in her brain that's incorrect and is not letting correct information pass through. What I want to say and what I want to make clear is that I am in no way condoning her behavior, anything about her. I think she has really bad ideas about a lot of stuff, but I can't make myself hate something that brought me so much joy for so long. So all I'll say is that, trans rights are human rights. We are big supporters of all maligned, people. I really want that clear at the beginning.
I wanted to understand what was happening. That's how I process information. Like when a crime happens, a lot of people are like, oh, how awful. And I'm like, well, how?
But why?
What happened though? And so my understanding. She said really ignorant and dumb things about transgender people, in particular trans women.
It's that it's removing rights from women somehow.
My understanding, because I read, I think about remember she released that 40-page
I read
statement. I read most of it.
Stupid.
I read at least half of it, but I don't understand why this is her battle. Why this is her fight.
Well, she believes she's sticking up for real women. And that's incorrect.
But that's not that.
No, I know.
And why she is allowing her reputation and her
because it was already getting tarnished with all of the extra things she was telling us about the characters, where it was like, there's those jokes and memes where it's like, oh, I never told you that Dobby was like a bottom in a BDSM relationship. And it's like, whoa, we don't need this.
It seems like slippery slope logic, which I hate because it's the kind of thing where it's like, well, if we have an issue with A, then A could lead to B, to C, to D, to E, to F. And she's jumping to F as in like, well, here's a problem or here's like a factor. And it's like, cool, but that's not a good enough reason to not even start. Like, you got to start somewhere, and we'll cross those bridges when we come to them. And the bigger problem is her profile. It's like, I'm all for nuanced conversation, and I'm all for like giving people room to breathe, room to develop, to understand, to change. But it's when you have as much money and power as she does, and you take a stance like this, it doesn't matter, because she keeps insisting that her views are being misrepresented.
No, they're not.
And well, even if they were, that's not the consensus. That's not what the public, the general public is hearing. Right. They're not hearing the nuance of the issue that you think is there, whether or not
doubling down on it. And
that for me is the worst.
That is the main thing, where she keeps on claiming that biologically born women are more maligned than trans women and trans people. And it's like, that's incorrect. Women are murdered every day, for sure. Trans people are murdered at such a higher rate every single day.
And I'm not saying that this conversation cannot be had, but I'm saying that you're not the person to be having it.
100%.
And to have that explained to you and continue to double down is really, because, and that's even, someone being ignorant, I can wrap my mind around.
Yeah.
It's like, it happens all the time. People change, like there's room for growth and all that. But it's like being petty or being like butthurt, like that's unforgivable to me.
Yeah. And she's being sort of smug about it too, where it's like she's acting as if she is the one who's right, and isn't it so sad that the rest of us can't see how wrong we are?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, no.
Like I said, I really wanted to do a deep dive. I really thought that maybe I was the person who could solve this, and I think I might not be. I think this might not be my place.
I mean, well, also that's not a face about your abilities to speak to somebody with nuance about this situation. But it's like, she's not going, at this point, she's not going to listen. She's in too deep.
I guess I wanted to, for lack of a better word, signal a little bit that I'm not just piling on. That I'm not just like, boo, dislike, like angry mob. It's like, I actually tried to understand what was happening here. And I found it to be stupid and harmful.
Yeah.
And so, now, like I said, I was planning to continue the conversation normally, because there was a great deal of creativity and I think wisdom and intelligence imbued into this material.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, and I suspect we'll get comments, there are a ton of people who take issue with a ton of things, especially in light of her other prejudices with tons of stuff in the books. Like, the one specifically in this one is like the goblins are like, you can read them as a negative portrayal of Jewish people.
But I mean,
I agree, it's a reach. They are literal goblins, and it's like, that is like not historically, but like a mythologically accurate portrayal of goblins. So it's like, I'm not here.
Well, and furthermore, it's like, just because you can break down where the mythology came from, at a certain point, culturally, it's a different thing. The connect. Like, it's like, we've said this before, but it's like the difference between a witch and a witch. It's like, what's the difference? What is in The Wizard of Oz is different from a person who practices a religion,
right?
And at a certain point, the English language has multiple words where one word can mean two different things. So, and frankly, sometimes when the need presents itself, we figure out another way. I mean, we're in a place, I've always said Native American, and now we're in a place where people say First Nation, and like, it's like, as the need to change, to grow, to evolve or reclassify stuff comes, it happens. And I suppose that's what's happening now. But like I said, I do remember in the early days of Tumblr reading some of that stuff, and I thought, I feel like you're looking for...
You're like trying for it. But I mean, there's like, and this is stuff that comes in the later movies where like people are really annoyed that like you know, there's all of these like intense, really cool, really like, you know, interesting names. And then like the only Asian character of note is named Cho Chang. And it's just like, I mean,
she is at least Scottish.
She is Scottish, and but it's like you could have named her like anything else that was like interesting or like different.
I mean, I suppose we'll get into some more of it when we get into the Fantastic Beasts, because I actually love the Fantastic Beasts.
The first one.
Well,
the universe of it is fun. Okay, we're getting way off track.
Well, no, this is what I wanted, and I don't want it anymore. This is what I imagine. Like, I imagine being like, I got this.
No.
And I'm like, no, I don't. I guess I need to reset a little bit, because that like bummed me out.
The whole conversation.
All right. So Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone.
Yeah.
What is your entry point?
Oh, actually, this is well, it's not really fun. Like, it's not a crazy fun story, but I was babysitting kids when I was in like, I think I was a senior in high school. And they wanted to watch a movie one night. And so I was like, yeah, okay, you know, pick what you want and we'll watch it. And they picked this movie. And I had never seen it. And I hadn't read the books or anything. And I was like, you know, freshly 17 probably. And like, wizard boy, whatever. And they put it on. And I was like, this is amazing. I was like so tickled and so intrigued. And it was, I guess, coming up to towards the second one, and so I didn't read any of them right away. And then I think it was like Christmas this year or something like that, I ended up getting, or the year after potentially, I ended up buying the first 4 that were out in paperback together. And then I saw the second one with my friends, and then I was just like fully obsessed the whole time, waiting for because the 5th book came out in paperback not too long after. And then I like got the 6th book the day it came out, and I got the 7th book the day it came out, and we went to a ton of midnight shows for the movies and stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, that was really it. They like, these little kids I was babysitting were like, let's watch this movie about the wizard boy. And I was like, okay, I guess. And I was like hooked immediately.
I remember my mom weirdly got that like first 4 book set for Andrew. Mm-hmm. She like, she never knew what to get him, so she was always like, oh.
Neither one of you are really readers.
No, I am not. It's because I've said it a few times, but I'm not diagnosed dyslexic or anything. However, most professionals agree there's something wrong with me. I have a hard time processing information when I'm reading it.
We have a hard time focusing too for that long.
I prefer audiobooks and such. But
well, Jim Dale reads the audiobooks. The guy who narrated Pushing Daisies. So
I never even thought about audiobooks for Harry Potter. That's funny. But I hated the cover art. I thought it was ugly. I thought it was quaint. I thought it was, I mean, it's nostalgic to you.
That's why I like it.
Yeah. It was quaint. It was cute in a way that I was like, ugh. I was not interested. This is where I'm like way more into like a comic book, Michael Turner, like J. Scott Campbell, like sexy ladies was like where I was at this point in my life.
Distinct lack of sexy ladies in these books and movies.
I'm aware. Note my wand collection.
And Bellatrix.
Yeah. Bellatrix. I have all 3 of my wands are the only pretty ladies in the but yeah, so I was really just sort of like meh with it. I remember going to see it in the theaters, and I do remember liking it, but in a general sense, the first 2 movies are my least favorite, and they're the ones I've seen the least. I do have a very, very strong fondness for the series and the franchise in general, and it's one of the reasons why I am so bummed out about this whole J.K. Rowling situation, is because I would really like to just
be able to
put that aside,
wholesale love it.
And I think that it is culturally pervasive enough, and I think that there are enough other people involved that it's like at a certain point she only has so much. She'll be gone with you. You have no power over me.
Yeah. I think the reason that I like the first 2 the best, I think actually comes down with a lot of weight on the fact that I prefer Richard Harris's Dumbledore to Michael Gambon.
Yeah.
I like him better.
Based on the books?
He is more correct.
Because he does nothing.
He doesn't do much in the first 2 books.
Okay.
He is like, the 6th book is my favorite one. I think the 6th book is the best book. And the reason is because that is where you start to see some of Dumbledore's grayness about what is happening and what he is doing. Like, he should not be doing this to Harry. He should not be getting this stuff done. And he even has a moment in that book that they didn't really land in the movies where he's like, I wanted to tell you every time something happened, but I couldn't. You were too young, and then you were too happy, and then this person died, and then that person died, and you were too heartbroken, and you were too scared, and I couldn't make myself tell you. And it's like, I think that if Richard Harris had lived, he would have delivered all of that so much better. And especially, we talk about it, I've mentioned it many times, I don't know if it's ever been on the show, the way that Michael Gambon behaves in The Goblet of Fire is incorrect. Everybody in that movie is just screaming at each other for no reason. It's incorrect. And it makes me furious.
Okay.
I just love Richard Harris, too, because I really, really like The Count of Monte Cristo that came out in the 90s or the early 2000s. So I'm just a fan. And I just think his Dumbledore is more the way he should be.
Well, I haven't read the books, so that is a non
Yes, but other people have.
For me. And so
some people will agree with me.
Oh, I'm sure, but it's like it doesn't affect it's sort of the whole, I mean, I absolutely get it. These are adaptations. Yeah. So the book is the real thing and this is a version of it. But it's like for me, it's like when people who read the books like book-splain to you, it's like, I'm like, oh my God, I love this thing. I'm like, well, actually, you don't because it's wrong.
No, and
it's like, oh, okay.
I fully accept people who love the movies just as they are, and that's fine. The movies, all 8 of them, tell a cohesive story, and they tell it as well as they need to, and that's fine. My issue, and it is my issue with every single adaptation of every single book I've ever read, whether I liked the book or not, is that, in my opinion, too many movie adaptations of books dig out the best parts and throw them in the trash. And that's why I like the first one and the second one almost more than all of the rest of them, is because they are the closest ones to the books. They are wholesale from the books. Imagery, like the feasts, some dialogue, everything is so the books. And that is why I like them. And I like the rest of them too, but it's like, my enjoyment of the movies kind of goes like this, and then kind of like this till the end.
Mine just goes like
this. I mean,
but like I said, as someone who hasn't read it, I prefer Michael Gambon because he's doing something. There's, as we say,
too much.
There's mustard on the sandwich.
Too much
where
mustard.
Richard Harris is just sort of like, yes, and I am the wizard that's going to... And that just kind of...
Yeah, but that's my thing is like, I feel like if he had lived, we would have seen the stuff from him. Or they should have gone a different direction than Michael Gambon, because it's too much for me. It's like, he's too like wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and he's too screamy the whole time. And it like really frustrates me.
I was laughing because I was like, the first thing you do is you're like, book 4 and book 6.
Just saying.
I am not interested in children. I don't like children. I don't want children. Yeah. It's like, and this is children. And I was actually kind of excited to revisit this because, like I said, I don't watch this one hardly at all. And I remembered a lot of it. I remembered most of it actually pretty viscerally. And it was sort of nice going because, I mean, it's 20 years old at this point.
Yep. Almost to the day. Yeah.
It was nice sort of going back and being like, oh man, look at the roots. And I think considering that at no point was this a guarantee, I think it largely feels part of the same whole. Yep. Like it like, yes, from movie to movie, there are certain tonal shifts, but for me, they do follow a pathway. It's not like something's just like radically different.
I mean, some of the vibes are radically, like the third one, like getting Alfonso Cuarón, that's who it is, right? Yeah. Getting him to make the third movie, I think was risky because before and after, it's just a bunch of white dudes, like a bunch of white British dudes with not a ton of like vision for like how it's supposed to look. And then that one comes in. And so in my opinion, it sticks out, but not like a sore thumb, like a thumb with a painted fingernail. That's like nicer. It's like the third one has such a visual identity that the rest of them, in my opinion, don't really have something that with that much flair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I mean, like the look of Hogwarts. It's like watching this movie, I'm sort of like, that's not Hogwarts. Like, I don't know what this is, but it's not, like, it's close. It's uncanny. It's like, it's close enough, but not quite.
Well,
but then, but that's only looking back. I think when you're going from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, it evolves in such a way that it feels like you're just getting deeper into. You're like, oh, now I have a grip on it.
Some things do. Hagrid's cabin, though, is so different as to be comical. It's like down the steepest hill you've ever seen starting in the third one. And when the rest of the times it's just like across the lawn of the school.
Well, but I overwhelmingly prefer the steep hill.
Yes. It's visually
because they're
more,
like, don't go into the Forbidden Forest. And it's like, you mean that right there?
Yeah, the one that's like immediately to my left.
But I think they are all very cute.
They're so cute.
They are not particularly good actors.
They're not amazing.
I know that, but they are charming. And I think that's where it soared. Is I think this really was sort of like kismet, lightning in a bottle, whatever. I think that these people say 3, but it's like you said, it's like a crop of 10.
There's like 10 of the kids who are there the whole time, because it's like the main 3 of them, and then Seamus and Dean are also, and Neville are there from the beginning, and then Draco and Crabbe and Goyle are all there from the beginning too. It's like, cool.
I also think it's funny how each of the child actors is bad in a way that suits their character.
Yeah.
Like Emma's overcommitted.
Yep. In every sense of the word.
And Rupert is like,
he's just
affable.
flying by the seat of his pants. He's just like, I'm cool, we're good, this is fine.
And then Daniel Radcliffe says that he was like, I didn't start acting till like the 3rd or 4th movie.
Yeah.
He was like, the first 2 movies is just me. He was like, that's what I would do.
Yeah. Apparently it was kind of a struggle to get him because his parents really wanted him to focus on school. He had been in The Tailor in Panama, and then his parent, or the young David Copperfield or something, and his parents were like, no, he needs to focus on school. And so then like sort of randomly, the casting director was like sitting next to his father at like a play or something, and they convinced him to let him do it. And I mean, could you imagine the world today if we didn't have Daniel Radcliffe? He is such a treasure. I love him so much. This is so off topic, but if anybody wants to, they should definitely watch Miracle Workers. It was a TBS show. I think it got greenlit even for a 4th season. It is hysterically funny. It's so good, and it's him and Steve Buscemi.
Well, and they just like, I guess they had no real way of knowing the trajectory, but he ended up being so appealing in a way that they, like I said, they couldn't have predicted, because he's attractive, but not in a imposing way.
Yeah.
It's
and he's also a little pocket person, so he's not like looming.
And it just really fits. Again, not having read the books, but it really set a tone. And because remember there were like talks early on about like recasting them, and I was like, no. Like,
they were worried about the time in between movies.
I would rather have like 25-year-olds playing 17-year-olds than having an entirely different person. And that's actually something coming from me, because I am very much a fan of just recast. Like, if there's an issue, recast it.
Yeah, but like not in something like this that's like a whole ass saga. Like, I mean, something.
But I mean that if somebody dies or 40 years have passed, I don't need CGI golems.
Yeah, no, of course. The thing for me about it that I was always like, no, you can't recast, is because it's so specific. Like, do you really want someone else coming in and just doing, like, playing Harry different? And this goes back to my Richard Harris thing. It's so tonally inconsistent to go from the 2nd movie with Richard Harris to the 3rd movie with Michael Gambon. And I understand that there was no way around that. Richard Harris passed away. It's very sad. But, like, it's such an inconsistency.
Well, I don't know if this says more about me than it does the change, but I didn't know it happened the first time around. It's only in hindsight that I'm like, that's a different person.
Yeah, it's way a different person.
And so I think that's what I mean, because I watched a couple of special features last night after the movie, and they were talking about the visual identity of it. And they actually were talking about Hogwarts. They're like, we didn't nail it the first movie.
Yeah.
And it was something that they were very aware of. And they determined that they were trying too hard to fit it in the real world. They were filming in actual castles and stuff.
Yeah.
And then they determined that they needed to like
make it crazier. For sure. I definitely agree with that. Even like there's an overhead shot, 2 or 3 overhead shots of London, and I'm like, ah. Because like when they do it in the 5th one, I think they do when all the Death Eaters are attacking, it's the 5th or 6th one. They at least put like a sheen over it, like a filter. And so it's like fine. But like this is just like a straight up Chris Columbus shot of St. Pancras Station. And I'm like, ah.
That's another thing that I think actually is a testament to the success of this franchise is that this movie came out at such a time.
2001, November 2001.
Film was changing.
Oh, yeah.
And this is a 90s movie.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
In a way that the third one is a aughts movie.
Well, not for nothing, he directed Home Alone.
Yeah.
So.
But that's what I mean, where it is a testament to the franchise because they, as you're watching them, in a row, it doesn't feel jarring the way that it does watching the last one and then coming back to the first one. It's like, whoa. And another thing is a good chunk of these visuals hold up nicely, which again, if you go back and look at some other movies that came out in 2001 is not the case. There's a handful of things that are digital and I'm not entirely sure why. Like, I don't know why the centaur faces are digital.
Oh yeah, I don't either. I think they're supposed to be a little more animalistic in the face and like bigger, but
I appreciate the swing. I don't know that it landed, and I think that I'm not alone in that, as evidenced by the fact that the centaurs just sort of disappear from.
They don't disappear in the books.
Yeah. That they're like, well, we're not going to try that again.
They should have.
Yeah, especially because, I mean, he's a a CGI monster in this one, but I was like, oh, I wish we had revisited this effect several years later because I might be into it.
Yeah, well.
This might awaken something.
At a certain point, he becomes the divination teacher.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like.
There's a real bright-eyed earnesty to this like entire thing that I think just becomes infectious. And also it's like, this is the third time I've started to make this comparison and I'm just going to go do it now. But we just watched the 4th episode of Amazon Prime's The Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
And so we're not enjoying it. And so there was something about watching this movie where I was like, oh, because we actually get fed this story. Yeah. We get little morsels at a time. And like, because I even made a joke watching the first scene where it was like, we meet Dumbledore, we meet McGonagall, we meet Hagrid, and we meet Harry. And I was like, I already have an understanding of who these people are and what they mean to each other, and therefore what that means for me.
And we see in 3 different ways how magic exists. Dumbledore takes the light from the streetlights. McGonagall turns from a cat into a human woman, and Hagrid flies in on the motorcycle. And
it's I keep wanting to say shielded. That's not it. But when McGonagall turns from the cat into the person,
oh, it's like a silhouette.
Yeah, and so on top of that, it's also promising us something which comes later.
Yep.
So it's establishing an expectation that it then pays off pretty well.
Yep.
Like my third note, and I think it's so funny, but it's actually a very me thing, but I just kept talking about how pretty McGonagall is.
Yeah, Maggie Smith was like a great beauty.
Yeah. I mean, she's an old lady, but just the green is so flattering. And I forgot I was going to put my hair in a bun. Oh. She has her hair in a bun. And I've always
really teased mine up like Hermione.
That's another thing that J.K. Rowling says that like never got right. Was
Hermione's hair.
She was like, Emma's too pretty, just across the board. And it was like, it is a movie.
Yeah, I mean.
But they're still trying in this movie. And she mostly just ends up looking like Beyonce.
Yeah.
like the halftime. Yeah. I actually also wrote that I think of all the kids, I think Tom Felton's probably the best actor.
At this point, I think he was also older than the rest of them.
Is he?
I think he was like 1 year older than the other boys.
Because there's the 1 or 2 scenes where he oversells something, Potter.
But that is like in character for him. So,
but just sort of like the handful of time, like he has reaction shots and stuff where he kind of is very naturalistic, where the rest of them are very.
Yeah. I also do. It was like well after the fact, like after all the movies had been out, and he was doing press for something else, and the interviewer was like, "Oh, do you ever like, do you still hang out with them? Do you talk to them?" Like, and he goes, "Yeah, every once in a while I'll just call up Dan and just go Potter and then hang up."
And we get a lot of information in this movie. It's also long, which is bold for a children's movie.
Yeah.
because I consider this a children's movie. Yeah. But again, it's like the information was given to us in such a way that I genuinely then and now, of course now, but it was like I genuinely follow it and I retain a lot of it, which again, Wheel of Time comparison, I wasn't retaining shit.
Yeah.
Like,
well, it's interesting. It's got like fun visuals. It's like, it's very accessible, especially as an adult. And I mean, what were we, 16 when the first movie came out? I mean, even to a 16-year-old, it's very accessible.
But I like that there's a range of characters. There's a range of ages. There's a range of tones. Like, I think
we have Percy and the twins too. So,
well, we even have Jenny, and she's just in the one scene. But it's like, there are little things I remember watching it the first time and being like, oh, well, is that going to pay off? And it's like, yeah, it will in several. And another thing, and this is jumping ahead a little bit, but I think this franchise was good at adding characters. Yeah. That when Luna comes in, I have a hard time remembering a time before her. Yeah. You know what I mean? Which frankly, that probably was a good instinct because we were allowed to really sort of focus on these three kids and Draco. Yeah. And the rest are there, but it's more for people like now. It's like which was Alfie Enoch?
Dean Thomas.
Dean. Like he's there. His little face.
Look at him.
He's there.
I also, much like Emma Watson, have had a crush on Tom Felton the entire time. From minute one, I was like, I like that one.
So we were about 5 years older than them. So obviously in this movie, there wasn't much.
No. But
I remember the third and fourth movie.
I watched him grow up.
Being very, what's that? The Liv Tyler.
Yeah. I have a crush on Tom Felton.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think of what are the big beats. Well, we have the pod racing. Oops. I mean Quidditch.
That's one of my favorite anecdotes, actually, is because at one point, J.K. Rowling said something about how she hated to write the Quidditch scenes because it was very tedious having to like go through all the plays and everything. I think she compared it to like listening to commentary about soccer because it's just like, and then he kicked it, and then he kicked it, and then it went into the basket or the net, and it's like, then he kicked it back. And so then the interviewer said that to, I think, Daniel Radcliffe, and he was like, oh, well, she can stop because they're very tedious to film too. He was like already so done with it.
You know, it's I don't wish it wasn't there. It's done well, but there was a point where I didn't want to pause the movie last night because Rachel was listening. Yeah. And she was like in her room, and I was like, the Quidditch game started, and I was like, this goes on for a minute, right? And I was like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom and refill my.
Well, especially something that's so interesting, and I won't say how, obviously, because we're gonna go forward and do it. But what's the best part to me is that you do need the Quidditch, and you especially need the Quidditch in this one because it is very important in the 7th book. It's like
the snitch.
So important later. Yeah. So it's like, you have to have this one or you can't have that. And it's like, that's important.
And they weren't like, she was finishing the 4th book when they were doing this. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And because the director, producer, the dudes in charge of the movie, I was watching the special features and they were talking about how she gave one of the producers the 4th manuscript. And he was like reading through it. And there was a point where he realized that he was just on a plane. Like with it out. And he was like, oh God. And they were saying that she would never actually tell them what was planned, but when they would ask her a question, she would be like, you have to do that. Yeah. She was like, because of something. 7. And so they'd be like, okay. So, and they just had faith that it would pay off, and it largely does.
So from what I have heard gleaned along the years, the only person that she ever told their fate to was Alan Rickman.
Oh, why?
Because it informs the way he plays everything prior.
Because this is but the beginning of a back and forth with and it's played so and that's where I honestly think that the starting this with children as a children's thing is actually so right and perfect because it allows the silliness. It
starts out so over the top, and only as it goes do we get into more nuance. But that's exactly the way that your life growing up works, is that you start just like feeling the broad strokes of adult situations, and it's not until you get closer to that you're like, oh, other stuff is happening.
When Alan Rickman is mincing around in the background, it makes it easier for me to swallow the troll or the centaurs or the unicorn corpse. I remember that being hard when I was like 15, and it's hard still. I was like, woof. We went for it there. She's not afraid to do that.
Well, it's not even just the unicorn corpse, which is bad enough, but it's that he's drinking its blood.
Which is just, it's Mad Max Fury Road. Like
silver paint.
I'm like, it needs to be, that's not a visual I think held up all too well. But, well, we also talked about how literally this viewing, I realized his name is Voldemort. And you told me it's apparently supposed to be Voldemort, and I say no to that.
French for death.
Like I can.
I'm just saying.
No, I know.
That's her explanation. I think it's bad.
Yeah.
That's her explanation.
There's some of that in Fairy Tale, but well, I remember watching the third movie, and I was with someone who read the book, and the second that Professor Lupin, I went, oh, he's a werewolf, and my friend Amy goes. And I was like, Lupin, it's French for wolf.
Also, his first name is Remus. Come on.
Well, that I didn't know, but I knew I took French, and then by that point, Brotherhood of the Wolf was out, and so I was like, oh, he's a werewolf. But no, I always thought it was Voldemort, like Boulder. So my entire life, Voldemort.
No, because there's only one R in his whole name.
Like I said, this time...
there are two. Oh, Lord Voldemort. Yeah, okay.
Were you just in your head?
Yeah, in my head. I was watching the scene from the second one where hot young Voldemort is like switching, like swooping the letters all around to say, I am Lord Voldemort.
Oh, okay. Do you have any more to say about, because I know how much you like Alan Rickman.
I love Alan Rickman. Where did that come from?
Or will that come from future?
Yeah, I mean, I just love Alan Rickman anyway. I like this a bunch of stuff happened at the same time with Alan Rickman that I really I think I had already seen Sense and Sensibility. So I really liked him from that. And then I really liked these. And then Love Actually came out like 2 years later. And so it's just like, I am obsessed with Alan Rickman. I think he's fabulous. I'm so sad that he died like as young as he did, because he didn't feel finished to me. But yeah, no, I love Alan Rickman. My only issue, and it is an issue that continues through all of the movies, is that he is way too old. They are almost across the board. Every adult is too old.
The adults, well, I was going to say they cast the adults like they're adults.
Yeah.
And they cast the kids like they're kids. And without really...
doing the math of any of those things, because like...
That happens. It's like we're meant to believe that Star Wars comparison. We're meant to believe that Ewan McGregor turns into Alec
Guinness within a span of like
12 years.
Like, not even, yeah. And so the thing for me that's annoying though is that like when Lily and James had Harry, they were like 21. And so everybody else who was their peer should be like 42 max. And they're not. They're all in their 50s and above. Like I think Alan Rickman was already almost 60 when these movies came out. And it's just sort of like, I mean, I guess like Fiona Shaw is like too old for I mean, she's amazing. Her and Richard Griffiths are amazing in this role, but it's just like, it's something that sort of annoyed me the whole time, because Gary Oldman and David Thewlis, like they're all easily 10 years too old once we get them. We don't have them yet, obviously. Most of the adult cast is great. It just is like, the whole time I was like, well, that doesn't seem right. They seem way too old for how old they're supposed to be.
Going back to the Voldemort, I like, again, the way in which the information is given to us.
Yeah.
Because it's not an exposition dump. It's not like, here's what you need to know, here's who everybody is and what they do.
Yeah.
It's like, we're talking about Harry's wand, which we're invested in because it's happening right now. And
that's like my favorite scene in this movie is where his wand chooses him. It's like, I love it. It could have gone on for longer, because in the book it goes, he's in Ollivanders for hours, just picking up different wands. He's gone through so many.
Because we actually meet Narcissa there.
Yep. Yeah.
I've like read the characters I like. I've read their Wikipedia pages.
Yeah. And I feel like at Madame Malkin's too, I feel like that's when That's where Harry first meets Draco, as he overhears him and Narcissa at the robe shop.
We're already invested because Harry is leaving a bad situation for a good situation. And on top of that, a good situation with magic.
A potentially good situation. It turns pretty negative pretty fast.
It's wish fulfillment. There's a lot of wish fulfillment.
No, for sure. Especially because that's something that I feel like is never addressed in the way that it should be, in that the Dursleys are physically abusive to him.
It's addressed.
It's never spoken of again. They are physically abusive. They lock him under the stairs. That he's, basically a servant. He does all of their cooking.
And their cleaning. I didn't need more of it.
Well, no, but I mean, it's in the future. It's never. I mean, I wish, and it's not in the books either. So there's no cause for this. I just wish that at some point somebody were like, yeah, it's really bad that your family hit you. Vernon hits him, shoves him. It's bad. It's really bad. Anyway, sorry.
Well, so anyways, we're at Ollivander's and we want to know about his wand.
Yeah.
And we're excited and learning about this mythos. And Ollivander is like, the phoenix feather from that wand has only ever given one other feather. And we're like, what?
Yeah.
I remember every wand I've ever sold, Mr. Potter. It so happens that the phoenix, whose tail feather resides in your wand, gave another feather. Just one other. It is curious that you should be destined for this wand when its brother gave you that scar.
It's just layered in such a way that I'm being pulled in versus being and that's how some other high concept fantasy things make me feel. Yeah. It's
I also think once Ron gets his correct wand in the second one, or in between the second and third ones, once he gets a wand that chooses him,
was his a hand-me-down?
Yes. Yeah, and then it gets broken in the car in the second one. Each of them has the different wand core. Harry has a phoenix feather, Ron has a unicorn hair, and Hermione has a dragon heartstring. And so it's those are the three ones that Ollivander does, and they each have one. And I always thought that was really cool.
This was just a question I had, but my first note is I said, so wait, Lily and Petunia's parents knew about the Wizarding World?
Well, they're allowed once they have a child. That's the same way that Hermione's parents know.
So their introduction is the invitation to Hogwarts?
Yes, but so we don't see it in this because I guess we kind of do because Hagrid goes, but they didn't do for Harry what they did for Hermione because they assumed that the Dursleys would have been informing him of things. They thought Harry would know. I don't know why they thought that would happen. McGonagall, it's the first thing she says. They're the worst sort of muggles. They really are. And Dumbledore was like, he'll be fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine. But what happens generally is McGonagall or whoever the head of house is will go to the Muggle-born person's house and explain and then hand deliver.
But on the 11th birthday.
Yeah.
That's a lot of information to take in.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe they did know beforehand, but I don't know how they would have found out.
Okay.
Unless they knew Severus, because we find out that Severus and Lily were friends before they went to school.
Oh.
So
those are maybe strings that don't need to be pulled out.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a narrative after all.
Yeah. But I mean, you even after discovering something like that, if you're open to it, you could be very proud that you had a witch in the family.
I also just wrote down a note. I've always thought that Rupert Grint's pronunciation of boogie.
Bogey. That's what they say in England.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh. I thought that was like when you were in a plane and a bomb was following you.
I mean, it's not. Yeah, I mean, it can. I guess it can be. That's a definition of it.
When you look up bogey when you're in a plane and a bomb is following you.
I mean, I'll do it. It doesn't even have to be a plane. It can also be a bomb, but it can also be another plane. Like a bogey is like a non-friendly presence around your plane. Because it's also a golf stroke, a golf thing.
I just think it's funny because he hits it. He hits it real hard.
Yeah.
He's like, I got one that was bogey flavored. I do like Richard Harris's with the jelly beans.
A lot. Earwax.
Oh, alas, earwax. I love it.
It's so awful, it's so vile, but no, it did take me a minute to fully warm up to it, because it was, like I said, it was a quaintness to this style of fantasy that I didn't quite appreciate, because Cerberus is one of my favorite mythological monsters, like god tier. It was our dog's name. And I remember being very put off by Fluffy.
That's
I get
what
it.
Hagrid named.
Yeah, I got it. I didn't like it. I was sort of
but it informs Hagrid's character.
Sure.
Yeah. Because then he has the dragon later, and it's like, these are the things that he thinks are just like sweet, cute and sweet. A dragon and a ginormous 3-headed dog. It's hilarious.
I do love the run and I shouldn't have told you that.
Yeah, it's really good. I do wish that continued a little more, although they stopped getting information from Hagrid for the most part. But he's also like, I always thought he was like a little bit dumber than he should have been. And like the way he like says, I can't spell it is like kind of not correct. Although, I mean, who knows what these kids' language skills are like. They'd stop doing core subjects as soon as they get to Hogwarts at the age of 11.
Well, they're too busy trying not to die.
Yeah, you know.
This is the movie that The Mirror is in.
Oh, yes.
Which you really...
I love it. I love The Mirror. I think The Mirror is one of probably the most, like, melancholy things in the whole series. And my favorite part, and I am definitely going to say that, like, if you have a Harry Potter tattoo, I don't feel like you need to get it removed or covered up.
No.
You're fine. That being said, I'm a little glad I never got the one I had planned. But I think one of the best lines in the entire series is when Dumbledore finds Harry after he's been there night after night after night over Christmas break, just looking at the mirror, looking at his family who are dead, and he says, "It does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live." That is like god tier advice for anybody about anything. I love it. It's like a really good quote.
I think it's going to depend on what happens with the Fantastic Beasts series going forward, which again, I think it's salvageable.
It is a listing ship.
No, that I think they're going to salvage it is the issue. But it's the kind of thing that I think that this story and this world is far more endearing than any negativity or
someone's
any like
comically bad take.
Scandal. That's what I was gonna say. Any like scandal du jour.
Sure.
Like,
okay. Sure.
I think it will live on.
Yeah.
And because we've said that we kind of can't wait for the inevitable, a
reboot in like 15 more years.
And I hope it's like a series.
Yeah, like a mini, like every book is a mini series. Every book is like 4 episodes.
Or they just commit to like a 7-season TV show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But because I think these are pretty fine, pretty standard, pretty good. I mean, obviously the 6th one is
Here's what I'll say. Here's my, because I don't have a lot of gripes from the first 2. My biggest gripe from the 2nd one is that they don't do the Cupids, and I think they should have done the Cupids because they're very funny to me. My biggest gripe about this one is we meet Charlie Weasley before any other Weasley, because Charlie Weasley is in this one and he comes to pick up the dragon. That's how they get detention, is because they're trying to give the dragon to Charlie and his friends so that they can take it back to the reserve in Romania. I want to meet Charlie. Charlie is not in any of these movies, and I want to know what Charlie looks like. So that's my gripe about this one, is that we don't meet Charlie.
Well, that seems to be a stopping point.
Yep.
Did you have anything that you wanted to?
No, I'm glad we're doing this, though, because we, have not touched Harry Potter the whole time we've been doing this. So I'm glad. I'm excited.
So cool. We don't really have a schedule for how we're going to do it. I guess it feels holiday-ish to me.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll get to it as we get to it. So
let us know if you are chomping at the bit for us to talk about more Harry Potter. Yeah. All right. Well, you kept looking like you had something else to say. You can follow us on Twitter at So I'm Watching, or Instagram at So I'm Watching This Show. We also have a website, soimwatching.com, which links out to everything. We also have a Patreon and multiple other ways that you can donate to the cause, as it were. If you would like to see more stuff like this, let us know. And yeah, just like and subscribe, and we'll be back later.